Hey tribe, Dawna here with Transformational Healing, and today I want to talk to you about shadow work and your shadow side. And what is your shadow side anyway? And how working on your shadow helps you to become a whole person and to do your self-healing that is vital for your journey here on earth. Your shadow side is actually just a part of you. It is all of those things, the other half of you that you don't acknowledge, that you don't shine light upon, hence shadow, because you don't recognize that it is there. It could be limited beliefs or things that are repressed or things that have been put upon you to believe about yourself or ways that you are allowed or not allowed to express who you really are by our culture, the culture you grew up in, or your situation in your family that you grew up in. Could also be things that you learned from other children when you were little about what is allowed or not allowed in our society. There are other aspects that it could be your fears, your traumas, your repressed feelings, and lots of other things. But not everything that is in your shadow or that is part of your shadow is actually something negative or something bad. There are many aspects of things, like I talked about Sunday on the live stream, that perhaps when you were a child, you had an imaginary friend, meaning you had sight. You were able to see things in the spirit world or see things that are from other dimensions or that most people don't see. But you were taught and told never to talk about those things, never to express that you could see those things, never to talk about the fact that you had prophetic dreams or that you could hear voices talking to you because that's not okay. It's not something that's normal. And what is normal anyway? But whatever we are taught as we grow up, that things that we are not supposed to do, sometimes those things are just things that other people are afraid of, but they are actually really amazing gifts. The amazing gifts of our sixth sense, of clairaudience, clairvoyance, claircognizance that we've repressed because they weren't allowed. They weren't okay for you to do. But if you can look deep inside yourself and light up that shadow, light up all those aspects of yourself, imagine the strength and the abilities and the things that you will be able to experience and express because you're doing your healing work and you can get rid of the limiting belief that you are not allowed to see things that other people can't see. You're not allowed to hear the spirits talking to you because it's not okay. So if you can go inside and do that shadow work and light up that shadow to get the shadow being the belief that you're not allowed to do that, and you can get rid of that, those things can come back to you and you become more of a whole person. And then when it comes to things like repressed fears, being able to say that you are ready to embrace the shadow side of yourself helps you to deal and face those fears. So a fear could be anything. And honestly, most situations of repressed things do typically come back to some form of fear. All of those negative emotions that we think other people are doing things to us or we always have bad luck, If you go inside and you break that down, it usually comes back to some sort of fear, some sort of repressed feeling that you're holding on to that is not allowing you to progress, not allowing you to manifest that life because you're holding on to it and you don't even realize it. And that's the thing about shadow. Shadow means those things that you are not actually aware of or that you do not acknowledge. So it can be repressed feelings. And as you deal with those things, one small issue at a time, and you start to embrace those aspects of yourself that you've been repressing, you allow yourself to cry because you were told that you were never allowed to cry. You allow yourself to experience being mad and being angry. And if you can actually feel that anger come up and you can acknowledge that anger and shine light upon it and figure out why you are angry, that's the point, and then release and let go of that anger, you've dealt with that issue. You've dealt with that shadow. If you're repressing those things and holding them in and holding on to those negative emotions and negative energies for long periods of time, you don't feel at ease in your body and you're opening yourself up for disease. That's what that means. You can actually hold on to angers and resentments and jealousies and not acknowledge that they're there and literally physically make yourself sick. I mean, you're in mental and emotional anguish all the time because you're constantly trying to shove those things down, but you can literally make yourself physically sick by holding on to anger and jealousy and not expressing them. Now, that doesn't mean that you express your anger by screaming and hollering and yelling and hurting other people, but you need to find a productive way to release that anger, or at least look at that anger and see where it is coming from. Because, yet again, even most anger comes from a place of fear. Fear of your boundaries not being respected. Fear for your safety. Not being heard. Not being accepted. Those are all things that create fear. Those are all things that create shadows inside of each and every one of us. Most of these things, like I said, because they're a shadow, they're things that we hide from everyone else, but they are also things that we hide from ourselves. So you can see that it would be very important to a little bit at a time, because this wasn't created in a night. This wasn't created in a day. All of these things that we have repressed and not acknowledged about ourselves took years for them to get there. And it doesn't have to take necessarily as many years to get rid of them. Once you start working on it and you start allowing those things to come to the surface so that you can accept them and release them, you will see that it actually goes pretty fast in comparison to how long it took for them to get there. But it's like peeling layers off of an onion. And sometimes we can take off a nice big thick layer, and sometimes we're only taking off that little film that's between the layers. And as you deal with these issues a little at a time, you start to get more in balance. You start to acknowledge and be mindful of your feelings in the moment, and that really helps those things to come up. Because if, when you're starting to feel off, you can go into the moment and you can actually really feel your body, feel your mental, emotional, and physical reactions to something going on around you, then you can Allow yourself to acknowledge where that's coming from and take the time and take the space to say, I am allowing these energies to come forward. I am allowing these feelings to come forward so that I can acknowledge them and deal with them. And take some time to sit. Sit with your journal and just write down everything that you're feeling. Write down those emotions that they come to the surface. And little by little, you'll be able to figure out where those things are coming from. So if you can take that time when you are feeling those emotions coming to the surface, or perhaps it's even late at night and nothing's happening, but you're just feeling wonky, say, I'm allowing these feelings to come to the surface so that I can see them more clearly. And just start writing. Just start paying attention to your dreams, and you'll be able to see what shadow aspects are there. And then embrace those things as part of you. They are your strength. They're where we get our strength and our passion from. And they're vital to that balance. So make sure that you're always in a safe place. Make sure that you take care of your spiritual boundaries. Make sure that you have people to talk to as these energies and emotions come up. But it is definitely time to start your healing work. Start looking deep inside, just little layers at a time. You don't need to face all of the things that you've been told are negative things that you're hiding inside yourself. You don't need to face all your traumas at once. This is about little steps, small steps of lighting a candle and asking for you to be able to fully see where your emotions are coming from. If you're living in fear constantly and you can allow yourself to acknowledge that there is a fear and I want to feel this completely so I can release it. That's your intention. So you're going to let that fear come up, let that energy come up, and ask to be seen the source. Ask to know where this is coming from and write. Write it all down. It will really help a lot for you to deal with all of those aspects of shadow. I talked a lot on the Sunday live stream. This past Sunday will be the last video in the channel about self-care and self-healing and how all of that is so important and your me time is so important. So this aspect of dealing with your shadow, dealing with your aspects of yourself that you don't want to deal with is vital for that overall balance that I talked about on Sunday. So go watch that video if you're interested in how it all works together. But right here, we're just talking about that shadow and facing it, dealing with it, and you can do this. I promise you can do it. Allow yourself to know that you're in a safe space and just fill yourself with light and allow those emotions and those things to come through. Just ask them to show you and you'll allow yourself to shine light on the things that you've been hiding from yourself. On Thursday of this week, we will be talking about working with our ancestors, and that can tie in to this shadow work. We're going to talk about setting up ancestor altars and what types of altars are good to set up and what things you might want to consider to add to them. But as a lot of us know, our shadow work a lot of times has to deal with dealing with our ancestors. So we can kind of use these a little bit hand in hand of dealing with trauma from childhood, trauma from ancestors, or perhaps it's not even our own trauma that we're dealing with, but it's ancestral trauma. and help to figure out how to heal it yourself and then slowly heal it through the family line backwards can be something that you can work on down the road when you are full and your heart is acknowledging and embracing those aspects of your shadow and you're mindful of who and what you really are. But I hope that you get a little bit from this video. I hope to encourage you to at least acknowledge a little shadow aspect of yourself sometime this week. So let me know that you're going to do this. Let me know what the results are. Let me know how you feel about shadow. Did you have a false belief about what shadow work really was? I'd love to hear that. And if you know someone else that needs this video, share it with them. Let them find a way to work on their healing work so that you can each work on healing work together. But I will see you on Thursday. Many blessings, tribe. Have a wonderful week.